by an amazing woman out of Florida. If I can give her a proper fighter's welcome. You know, I got to know her for a little bit today. Okay. I can tell you right now there's going to be a lot of information to consume just by the power in her presence and her message, folks. Okay. She wears, ladies and gentlemen, the black and gold full of bedazzle. That's right. She stands a champion's height of 5 feet 11 inches tall. Ladies and gentlemen, at 165 championship pounds, this young lady has given back over $1 million to childhood cancer families. She is the founder, operator, and inspiration, ladies and gentlemen, behind Aiden's Army of Angels. She hails from Las Vegas, Nevada, now out of Atlanta, Georgia, Miss Nevada, Miss Fabulous. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss West Coast, Miss Southern Nevada, help me welcome to the microphone, Miss Lindsay
I don't think it could have been better. It threw me off saying it had something to Aiden. You can't tell nobody's mommy that's what we're doing. And they not want to cry. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Lindsay Licari, and I am the president and founder of Aiden's Army of Angels, but I think my most great accomplishment is I am Aiden's mother. And Aiden was my son, and he has now won his battle with cancer and returned to heaven. Aiden was diagnosed at 13 months old. And Aiden was my only child. And at 13 months old, I came home and saw him crawling around and he was breathing really heavily. And I couldn't understand if he couldn't walk and run yet why he was so tired. So me and my mother took him to the doctor. And when we got to the pediatrician at the time, I was a school bus driver. So I went on my break and we took him to the hospital and he had to stay and do x-rays and I had to go back to work. Well, when I got off my shift, I got another phone call from the doctor. And they wanted me to immediately go get Aiden and go to the emergency room. So I did just that. I ran home and I got my son, and when I walked up to him, his eyes were rolling into the back of his head. And we got him in the car, and I got to the emergency room, and we ran in there, kind of like what you would see on a movie. I didn't sign in, I bust through the doors, and they brought Aiden in, and we spent 2 weeks in the hospital before they diagnosed Aiden with cancer. Aiden had stage 4 rhabdomyosarcoma, which is a cancer of the skeletal muscle, and my baby fought for 2.5 years before he gained his wings. And during those 2.5 years, we spent a lot of time in the hospital. So I immediately lost my job, and we lost our apartment, and we moved to California, where we spent 3 weeks in the hospital and we got 1 week out. But a lot of times, even that 1 week out wasn't a week out because the platelets would go low, his blood, he would have nosebleeds, and we'd often go back to the hospital. So going through this process over a year, because this is how his first year of treatment went, 3 weeks in, 1 week out, I realized that there was a lot of gaps. There was a lot of gaps in resources. There was a lot of days where I wasn't able to eat, and they didn't provide parent meals like they used to when I was a child in the hospital. So I started seeing all these problems, and at the same time, I still needed to support my son. I still needed to go to work. I still needed to make sure he had fun days and a place to sleep. And I realized that I was very alone in this situation. At least I felt that way at the time. And throughout, our inpatient treatments, I would notice that we were blessed because of the support of my family and foundations, I was able to give my son 100% of my time. And because he was my only child, I was able to spend all my time with him and all my energy. But I also noticed in the room next to me, mothers would have to leave their children. And there was nobody there to make sure that they were taking the right medicine, that they had pain medicine or fun days, or they were eating healthy. And that's kind of where Aiden's Army of Angels started. So me and Aiden began Aiden's Army of Angels, and initially all we did was give Band-Aids and diapers and toys to, kids next door to him. And from there, he went terminal. So when Aiden went terminal, I kind of felt like I wanted to live his life and fight our own way. So living in California, where, we stayed at the Ronald McDonald houses and all these different places where we had to live to survive treatment, when I found out that he wasn't going to make it, I wanted to make sure that I could give Aiden every piece of happiness that I could. So the day they told me he was terminal, we packed up our car and we went back to Las Vegas. And when we did do that, I was able to utilize support of foundations, which was what gave me time with my son. And for me, that was the message that I felt Aiden wanted me to share tonight, was why it's so important to have that time. Because the doctors couldn't save my son. The medicine couldn't save my son. Rhabdomyosarcoma has been a childhood cancer for 30 years. So why after 30 years was there absolutely not one resource available to my son? And he wasn't able to get into the St. Jude either. So I realized that there's many gaps in resources, and stepping up and making a difference would fill some of those gaps. And I was able to do that with my son. So as we started building this foundation, I did it in the hospital with Aiden, and I picked 3 logos. A couple of them were cartoons, and then one of them is what you see today. So I showed Aiden these 3 logos, and he looked at them all, and he said, "Look, Mommy, it's me and you." And that is where our logo came from Aiden's Army of Angels. And then we went from Band-Aids. Aiden hated brown Band-Aids. And if you guys have a child that's fighting, something as simple as those Band-Aids are a huge deal. So Aiden was able to collect hundreds of character Band-Aids to help the families. And we went from the Band-Aids to the snack bags, and from snack bags to grants. And by the end of Aiden's fight in 2017, Aiden was able to raise $265,000 in resources for alternative treatment for himself. But he then gained his wings back to heaven. But before he passed, he knew what we were doing. He knew what kind of cause we were trying to build. And families were reaching out to us for support before my son even reached heaven. So I would tell Aiden about the calls I would get, and I would tell him, this mom called me and they need some groceries. And Aiden would say, "Well, Mommy, we gotta get them groceries then. But first, you gotta get me something." So we always found a way to make sure that he gave to others, but also found joy in his life itself. So one of my favorite stories about Aiden was one day when we were home, and I was taking out my weave. And as I was taking it out, Aiden comes in the bathroom, and if you guys have ever seen anybody do this, it's a messy process. So my hair's all over the place, and my son's looking at me, and he's like, "Mommy, what's wrong with your hair?" And I tell him, "Well, this weave, it isn't Mommy's hair. This afro is Mommy's hair." And he says, "Okay." And he just goes about his business. So maybe 2 months later, Aiden comes in the bathroom again, and I'm doing the same thing and trying to get my hair all together. And he comes in and he says, "Mommy, you are so beautiful with your afro. And he remembered this 2 months later. And there's been many times people have told me this. But it wasn't until my 3-year-old son came into that bathroom and told me I was beautiful that I truly believed it. And that is what these kids do. God sends them special. He sends them with incredible amounts of strength and empathy. And he sends them as his children. And he allows us, Joel and me, he thought we were this special that he would let us protect his child for the short time that they were here. And I am so grateful that I can say I was Aiden's mom. And tonight when I was thinking about this speech, and this is the first one I've done and I haven't wrote it down, but when I was thinking about it today, I was thinking, what would Aiden want you guys to know? What would Aiden say about the treatment and the experience that he had? And I feel like the message Aiden would want me to share with everybody in this room tonight is how important the time that we have with our child is. And how important it is to have your parent at your bedside every moment of treatment. Because even if there isn't a surgery, they still need to smile. They still need kisses and hugs. They still need fun days. And they can't get that from a nurse. They need their parents. So if Aiden was here, I think on behalf of Aiden and myself, I would thank the foundations, the Bumblebee Foundation, the B Plus Foundation, and a lot of these foundations are small, ran by parents. And those were the foundations that made sure that our financial problems didn't interfere with his treatment. And that I could spend every second with my son. And I absolutely did that. And because of those foundations, and because of their support, I never missed anything for Aiden. I couldn't kiss him one extra time. I kissed that boy a million times. I couldn't have told him another story. I couldn't have took another picture. I have no regrets standing here today because I was given the gift of time. And that gift of time was given to me through the support of foundations. So I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to figure out these things. My focus and all my energy was Aiden and his survival. So my son didn't even know he was sick. And at the end, when he could not walk anymore, he still didn't think about himself. And how our foundation became such a large foundation was when Aiden went on the news and they were talking to me about why I wanted the support to get him alternative treatment. And Aiden, as I'm telling the story, I begin to cry. And I'm holding Aiden in my arms. And my son just stops me and puts his little hand on my face and says, "Mommy, don't cry." So as he's fighting to survive, the only thing that hurt my son was my pain. So the strength that these children have is something that cannot touch your life and not change it forever. So as we all sit here today, as Joel builds this amazing legacy of Mia, keep in mind that this is how you support Joel. This is the last piece of his little girl that he has left. And it's going to touch millions of families. It's going to help many others like myself never have to choose between paying a light bill and being with your child. And through my relationship with Joel, and what makes us similar is we were both did this as single parents. Mia and Aiden was our only child. So we went from having the most amazing job in the world to now being completely alone and broken. But as you say, we were broken together. And this piece of Mia, this is only the beginning. And it's you're through this process. I'm now in the 4th year of Aiden's Army of Angels. I smile a lot more than I cry now, because I'm so proud of Aiden. And I know that you're going to be so proud of Mia and how amazing she is going to continue to make you grow into this person that I still don't recognize myself half the time. But through the experience of, spending time with Joelle, I realized that through the foundation, it's not just during treatment that there's help needed. When we lose our children, that parent still needs support. That parent still needs a hug. And a lot of times it's hard, because what do you say? What do you say to somebody who lost their child? And really, if you have nothing to say, you do what you're doing right now. You show up. You show up and you support, and sometimes you don't say anything, you just give them a hug, because sometimes that's all we need is to be held. So I'm super excited to be partnering with the Gold Corner to bring aftercare programs. So not only does Aiden's Army of Angels offer grants and scholarships and alternative medicine and support, now with the support of Gold Corner, we are now going to offer aftercare programs where after you lose your child, you are still eligible for financial assistance. After you lose your child, we will help you retrain into a new career that is something that you can do. And after you lost your child, we will help you through the process of grief and then take you on a retreat where you can start new chapters and new beginnings. And not only are you able to start new chapters and new beginnings, you are meeting other parents that are up at 3 a.m. and can't sleep, other parents that have lost everything and still finding ways to survive. So tonight, as you guys listen to the speakers and you guys, listen to the resources that are needed, keep in mind that your donations aren't just a monetary gift. You're giving the gift of time. You're giving the gift of memories. You're giving the gift of building Mia's legacy and supporting Joelle to the point that he knows you are never, ever alone. And as you continue to grow, you will see how much Mia is still part of every piece of it. So I would like to finish by thanking everybody who showed up tonight, because it's not easy to attend these galas. And as you guys open up your hearts and open up your checkbooks, keep in mind that you're changing lives. You're making an impact that is going to last forever. And as your very first speaker at your very first gala, Aiden's Army of Angels and Aiden and my family will be making a donation today of $3,333.33, because that was Aiden's favorite number.